and welcome Mindsetters to this session of grade 11 maths literacy. I'm Ty and I'm here with
Hi.
Haley.
Hi, Ty.
Yes, and she's going to be taking us through
Hi,
the
grade
session today.
11s.
Yes, what are we going to be doing today?
We're going to be doing 2D, 3D, measurements, area, volume, all those kind of things that I
Alright.
know most of you are cringing and going, "Ugh, it's not that hard." So we're going to go through it again. I know it's a bit of revision and we'll go some questions.
Okay, so
So
while
I'm gonna
Haley
walk
makes her way
across.
there, I'm going to make sure I tell these mindsetters what they need to do. Mindsetters, you should know by now that the drill is get on the page, get chatting to us. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know if you're lost anywhere, if you need help, if there's any particular section that you want us to cover in this subject matter. Make sure you get it on the page so I can get that to Haley. But on that note, mindsetters, I'm going to tell you, pay attention, pens and pads out. Haley, take it away.
Thanks, Ty. Hi, grade 11s. Like I said, we're going to be doing 2D and 3D measurements. And I know a lot of you guys really struggle. So let's go through it again and do a little bit of revision. So what are we going to do? Overview of today's lesson. We're going to look at perimeter. We're going to look at area. We're going to look at surface area and volume. So we're basically going to be doing our 1 dimension, our 2 dimension, and our 2 dimension for surface area, and finally volume of 3 dimension. Although I'm going to put a 3D here because it's 2 dimensions of a 3D shape, but I'll get to that in a moment. So let's do a quick recap of what is perimeter. So perimeter of a square is literally, I always say to my kids, it's the outline. So when you think about perimeter, it's in 1 unit, it's 1 dimension, and it's the outline. So you can imagine we're standing on the edge of this shape, and I'm walking around the shape. Okay, my walking's not quite as close as the purple line, but I need to add up all these sides. So I've got my length, plus length, plus length, plus length. And that's literally all it is. Any shape, you can literally think about walking around. But if you'd like to use the formula, we can actually say it's length plus length plus length, or we can say, well, it's 4 times the length. Right. And the same thing when you've got a rectangle. Walking around, or I can see that I've got my length, walking along my length, and then I've got a breadth, a length again, and a breadth. And I can also use the formula because I've got 2 of both length and the breadth. So we can use that formula. Now these particular formulas, these easy perimeter ones, they probably won't give you the formula. But as we get a little bit more complicated, or kind of we get to 2-dimensional surface area, they usually give you the formula. So you don't have to learn them, which is really nice. Okay, our triangle, in actual fact, is our side plus side plus side. And that's basically what you said here. We've got AB, that's the one side, plus BC plus CA. So it's side 1 plus side 2 plus side 3. Quick recap of Pythagoras. Right, if we look at our triangle again, what does Pythagoras say? Well, if we add numbers of x, y, and r, is that the square of the 2 sides, I say, on either side of my right angle. So I always tell my kids, either side of the right angle is equal to the square of the opposite. So I've got x squared plus y squared equals to your hypotenuse squared. And if we're trying to work out what r is, well, if we've been given r, so we're trying to work out one of the others, x squared is actually equal to r squared minus y squared, or y squared is equal to r squared minus x squared. So I think we'll probably have some later in the show where we can actually do with calculations with x, but it's just a matter of practicing how to do this. So I'm going to move on to the circle. So our circle, right, the outside of the circle is also called the circumference. And the formula for the circumference of the circle is 2 pi r, 2 times pi times the radius. And we usually tell you to use pi equals 3,14. And if they tell you to use that, then what they're basically doing is they're saying, well, take pi, which is 3,14159, and carries on and on, and they're simplifying it. So what's nice about using 3,14 is you get a more exact answer, and you're also going to end up with the same answer as your teacher. And she doesn't have to sit and calculate every single combination. So, and in fact, I'll show you later when we do a circle if we try with pi or pi equals 3,14. But it's always nice to follow instructions, and especially to have the same answer as the memo. The other formula that I could actually use for the circumference or the perimeter is, because I know, okay, let's go back to our circle. My radius is from the center to the outside of the circle. If I go from the circumference to the center to the outside, I've basically got one radius here and one radius here. I've got two radii. But that line that goes from one side through the center to the other is called the diameter. So 2 radii is equal to the diameter, or alternatively I can say the radius is equal to the diameter divided by 2. But if I look at my formula of my perimeter equals to 2 pi and r and times the radius, and I look, there's my 2 and there's my radius, I can actually substitute in a diameter. So I can say that my perimeter is actually equal to pi times my diameter. So just if you see it like that, you might, and it might confuse you. That's the reason. So I don't want you to be confused. Okay, let's move on to our area. Right, this is the one formula you probably will not be given. It's the one you need to learn, that the area of a square, in fact, is length times length. The area is actually length squared. And the rectangle, I don't know what happened to my rectangle. Let's draw a rectangle. Area of my rectangle is length times breadth. And finally, my triangle is, the area of my triangle is half the base times my perpendicular height. Okay, so it's half times the base times the perpendicular height. And if you're struggling to work out which is the base and which is the perpendicular height, I always tell the kids that I teach, well, kind of, sometimes if you turn the paper around, it might look better to you, and you might be able to work it out, but your base and your perpendicular height are the either side of the right angle. So I just want to show you a triangle quickly that has something like that. Oh, how's this? Not a very good triangle. Okay, my perpendicular height is the one with the right angle, and my base will then be this bottom one. That'll be my base. Formula still the same, half the base times the height. And then the area for a circle is pi times the radius squared. And in this case, we cannot use the diameter. So if you're given the diameter, you're going to have to say, well, okay, my area is actually pi times my diameter divided by 2 squared. Okay, and now let's move on to the next, which I think is 3D. Now, measurement in 3 dimension, but we're dealing with surface area. This is the one where I said it's kind of 2D and 3D. So what do I mean? Surface area is using a 3D shape. A box. Let's look at our rectangular prism. It is in 3D, but I am looking at the surface area, which is the outside of this box. And it is actually, if I lay it flat, it is in 2 dimensions. So my surface area is a 2-dimensional image of my 3D shape. It's the outside. Rectangular prism, right. What we have here is I'm going to show you, let's see if I can get a color that will work on here. Right, let's try green. I've got 1 shape there, I've got 2 there, and I've got 3 there. And what I need to do, and it's always a good idea to add these values to your calculations. So add the length, breadth, and height. So I'm going to make that my length. There's my breadth. And finally, my height is that value there. My formula for this rectangle is, I've got 2 of each. I've got one side here and one opposite, which you can't see. I've got number 3 there and number 3 there, and number 2 at top and 2 right at the bottom. So I've got 2 of each side. And now what is my area of just a rectangle, so the area of one is length times breadth. My area of 2 is length times height. And my area of 3 is breadth times height. So that's my formula for surface area of a rectangular prism. Then when we look at a triangular prism, well, in actual fact, we've got 2 triangles. So I'm going to have 2 times half the base times the height. And then I'm going to add 3 rectangles. So that'll be the height of my triangle, my height of my prism, times this side. So let's look at this first rectangle. It'll be there's a side. It'll be that kind of shape. So I'm going to add my height times my side of my triangle, call it side 1, plus the height times side 2, plus the height times side 3. So all 3 sides. And it'll be 3 rectangles and 2 triangles. And lastly, if I've got my cylinder, well, okay, my cylinder, if I had to lay that flat, in fact, let's just draw that quickly. We would have 2 circles, that's my top of my cylinder and the bottom of my cylinder. And then I've got this round part of the cylinder, which I know you know that if we open it up is a rectangle. So my formula for this would be 2 circles, and pi r squared is our formula for circle, plus I need this rectangle. So if I call that my height of my cylinder, that's where that height is. This value here, let's draw it in a different color. This value here is the same value that's going to go around my circle. So it is in fact the circumference of the circle. That there's the circumference of the circle. And we've just done the circumference of the circle is, well, what happened there? 2 pi r. So my formula will then be, let's go back to our green, 2 pi r squared, that's my 2 circles, plus my circumference of the circle times the height of the shape. In fact, that's a capital H in this particular picture. Okay, so that's our surface area for a cylinder. And moving on to our 3-dimensional, right, our volume, which is now officially our 3D of our rectangular prism. Again, I'm going to have my length, my breadth, and my height. And the volume for this is actually just length times breadth times height. I also like to tell my kids when I'm teaching them is that it is the common side. What I mean that it's the side that stays the same throughout the shape. And we times that by the height of the thing. So if I make my length times breadth, that's my front piece that you can see here, my common, then my height goes into the shape, into the wall. For example, on my triangular prism, that's my common side. It's the side that's going to stay the same throughout. If I had to cut this triangle anywhere along that path, I'm going to still have a triangle. So it's my common side, which in this case is the base times the perpendicular height, or half the base times perpendicular, times, and let's call that an h, the height of the shape. So it's the area of that, which I've got, times the height of the shape. And the same thing with the cylinder. What's common? My common is my circle. And again, I'm going to make that the height, and I'm going to times it by the height of the shape. So I think we're going to go on to some questions, but I think maybe we should take a little bit of a break. I think I've given them so many formulas and so much information. But guys, we're going to use those formulas now to actually do some calculations. And that's the best, just like the practice. So let's take a little bit of a break.
And then we'll come back and we'll tackle those questions.
Absolutely.
All right. So on that note, mindsetters, do not disappear. Do not go anywhere. Make sure, okay, if you have to go somewhere, if you have to go pee, whatever, go get juice, whatever you need to do, go do it now. But make sure you come back after this break. We'll see you soon.